Welcome back to Cody Builds. On today's episode, we're going to be working on finishing up the replacement cab mounts in the front of the cab here, sizing up the cab mounts and making sure everything's going to fit for us, getting our holes drilled out and the repair patches on the frame, and just finally making this, hopefully making this cab one with the chassis. So that's on the agenda for today. Stick around and let's get to work. All right, guys, so today I've already got my replacement body bushings from Dennis Carpenter set up on the back here. I've got the cab squared side to side, front to back. So I'm gonna go ahead now and get those back mounts tightened down, just loosely tightened, not like really crushed down into place, but we're gonna get those tightened down so that I can get the front squared up and we can start welding in the replacement cab mounts. Yeah, the nice part about having a fixed up truck is I'm not getting a face full of rust every time I get down here now. Now we're going to come around to the front and take a look here. Now I did do a little bit of pre-work, so I kind of know what it needs to be done, but I want to show you guys what I've been looking at here. So this body mount, we're pretty close to square on the frame. I haven't checked it, but I think you can see that the center of this body mount is going to fall somewhere at the bottom of this hole down through there. And I think you can see that's not centered on the actual frame mount down here. It's biased way on the inside and the other side is in the same position. So what I need to do actually is I need to mark and trim off of one edge here because this is running up tight against the side of the floor pan and the rocker. So I need to measure what the difference is between the center of the cab mount and the center of the frame mount hole location is, or whereabouts I think it is, because I really don't want these sitting so far inside. I want them centered over the cab frame, over the frame cab mount. So I need to cut off a little bit off the edge of each of one of these, and then after I cut that off, we're going to take our hole punch and punch a bunch of spot welds for the firewall and along the floor pan. The other thing I'm gonna have to do on this side, and another frustration with these cheap patch panels. So this is the CHL patch panel from LMC Trucks. LMC doesn't make it, they just acquire it. And the floor pans were also CHL, so you'd think they are meant to work with one another, they'd be relatively close. You would be wrong if that was the assumption you were making. When I get this up tight to the firewall where it looks good there, look at the floor gap here. I mean, that's not even like within an inch of the floor. It's way the heck off, and that's extremely frustrating. This side, actually, if I push it up into place here, we don't have that problem. It fits actually really nicely. So did I not get this floor pan pushed down far enough? The problem we had, again, with these floor pans is they didn't really meet the firewall where they were supposed to. They were short of where the firewall should be, and they were a little tall. Maybe this floor pan should be dropped a hair, maybe, but it's pretty tight at the bottom and I don't see how it could be that far off. So what we're gonna have to do is cut the body mount in the corners here, pie cut them probably, fold them in tight to the floor, weld those gaps back up, and then weld that solid to the floor, or with some spot welds to the floor. That's the game plan, at least for that side. It's gonna be a little bit ugly, but again, once you get it all painted black and ground smooth, you're never gonna notice it anyways. Same thing on this side though. You can see when we pull this up into place, the body mount doesn't really align with the frame mount. So the next thing I wanna do is take a measurement of what our distance off is between the center of the frame mount and the center of the cab mount. And that's how much we're gonna end up taking off the far side of both of these panels. I'm gonna take a bolt and I'm just gonna drop it through our center hole here and stand that on end. And now you can see just how far off we are out of center from this bolt. We're really biased to the inside of the frame here. I've got a center punch actually where I thought the center of this mount would be. And it looks like front to back, it's right where it needs to be, but it's maybe an inch off here. So that's where we're trying to get to. We want to get to, it's really going to be really hard for you guys to see, but there is a center punch right at the tip of my finger right there. And that's where we're trying to get this bolt to line up. I'm gonna take a quick measurement there, figure out how wide that is, and then you can see here, we're actually hitting just on this corner right here. And then I've got about a fingertips gap down here. So really I don't have to cut an inch off the whole edge. What I need to do is cut an inch off this corner here probably and get this whole mount to slide over so that it lines up better with the frame mount. So it is a little bit fiddly, and there is a little bit more work here than I was hoping for, but ultimately the cab mount will then be tied up against the rocker, which will be better than where it's currently at. We'll have the mounts sitting centered over the frame pads, which is the best case scenario. So it is what it is. We just got to do the work and get it done. It's almost exactly 1 inch. It's probably more like 7/8 of an inch as I move it here that we need to cut off. So I've got my tape measure flipped upside down and I've got it centered. I've got it centered where the bolt is sitting on the mount, and I can see, yeah, it's between somewhere between 7/8 and 15/16. So we're just shy of an inch that needs to come off of the cab mount here. Now I'm going to show you how I'm going to determine exactly how much to cut off. We've got to get underneath the truck for that. All right, we're under the truck here, and you can see right where my finger is here. This is the cab mount. This is the rocker, inner rocker here. You can see we're hitting right here, but then this gap opens up. It's a little dark down here, but you can see it opens up all the way to back here where we have this gap between the cab mount and the inside of the rocker. So we know we want to get this whole panel to come towards the rocker about 1 inch, right? It just so happens that at the back of this panel, we right now have about a 1 inch gap. We want to find where this gap comes to 1 inch, and we want to make a mark, and then we're going to strike a straight line from this mark to the back corner of the panel, and that's what we're going to cut off. That should give us the room to slide this all the way over to the side edge here. I'm going to slide this up until I see where the end of my tape crosses the edge of the panel, and it's right there. So that mark right there is where we have a 1 inch gap between the body mount replacement panel and the inside of our firewall here. Now we know we can draw a straight line from there all the way to the back corner of this body mount replacement panel. Cut that off, and that should allow us to slide this whole panel over 1 inch. All right, so we got that trimmed, and now you can see how much better this is placed. And it fits much tighter up along the edge here. So now we're gonna prep this panel for welding in. We're gonna go ahead and punch out the spot welds that we're gonna do up along the side here. We're also going to cut these on the corners here so that I can fold them in, tack them in place, fold the other side, and trim it down, tack it in place when the time comes. I'll go ahead, get this panel prepared, and then we're gonna prime and paint the back side of this so it doesn't rust, and then we'll move along to fitting that side in. I notched this corner where we've got the big gap between the firewall and this bracket, and I shoved those together, overlapped them, pushed them tight to the firewall, and I made a mark on the edge of this panel where it falls. So now I can come in here and I can cut a pie slice out of this, and I did the same thing up here, and we can trim that back so that way when I force these tight to the firewall, we won't have any overlapping metal here. I can weld this seam back solid, then we can spot weld up the sides. So it'll sit nice and flat to the firewall without any issues. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean that up. And then once I've got those cleaned up, I'm gonna put it back one more time, mark where all my spot welds are on the bottom side so I can clean those up, and this thing will be ready to weld in once we get the backside painted. All right, I got the passenger side all prepped and ready to go. I'm just waiting on the paint to dry on the body mount to start getting it tacked into place, which means we can move our attention over to the driver's side. We're gonna do a repeat of what we just did here. So we're going to get the driver's side trimmed down. We're gonna figure out how to get it centered up because it's got the exact same problem. If you come in here and looked, you can see, you know, center of this mount is falling really biased to the inside of the actual frame mount, which is probably somewhere closer to here. So again, we're probably about an inch off there. So we're gonna bias that back over, trim about an inch off or whatever it is. I'm gonna do that measurement, and then we're gonna prep this panel in the exact same way we prepped the other one. We'll get all the holes punched, we'll get it primed and painted on the inside. We'll get, you can see here I sanded where all the spot welds are gonna be on that side. That way, once the paint's all dried up, we can get this one welded in, and then we'll be ready to mark the actual frame pads where we need to drill those out. So that'll be next after we get this prepped and painted and get both of these mounts welded in. All right, guys, it's time to get this tacked in. So I'm gonna just start by tacking in the top here and working my way back. We're not gonna get the whole thing welded across. I wanna get it kind of fit up into place and make sure it's gonna fit okay before we go too nuts here. So I'm gonna do probably one in each corner, one in the middle, and then we'll work our way back and get this thing welded up. Yeah, you can see this side is by far the worst here. We've got this giant gap. We're gonna see if we can't get that closed up first. Before I get too far along here, I'm gonna try and push this top edge over first. And you can see, since I sliced it already, we might be able to get it pretty close to where I need it. But it's not gonna be really, it's not going willingly necessarily. I can get it close there. I got it touching. I can see I got a little gap there. I can put a tack on that. I should hold it, hopefully. And now with that tack there, I can actually knock it back in and get it welded in place. That's perfect. Now I'm gonna go ahead and plug weld that up so it doesn't move any further on us. That's good, that's really solid now. All right, next up, we're gonna try and close this gap up. And I'm gonna have to run the cutoff wheel through there. I got pretty darn close, like really close, but I just need to take just a hair more off of that. So I'm gonna grab the grinder and the cutoff wheel and slice through that one time. Oh yeah, perfect. So I'm gonna shove that up in there, get a tack on it. Yeah, now we can just work our way down this panel, get our plug welds tight in there. Okay, we actually got this joined back up pretty well. I'm gonna run some weld up across that. All right, we got the first one welded in here. It's not fully welded in, it is on this side, but I still have some more on the top and on the back and the side. I did set it down on the frame pad here just to get an idea, and I like that much better than where we were before. Still not maybe perfectly centered, but much better than where we were before. And I'm really liking that. It's turning out nice. We're gonna be able to grind a lot of this up, clean it up, paint it up. You're never gonna notice it. I think I'm ready to move on to this side, and we're just gonna do the exact same thing. We're gonna tack it at the top to get it started and work our way back to the back of the panel. And then once we've got that welded in, we will be able to mark where we're gonna drill our holes. When I lift this cab off the frame to drill those holes, that's when we'll finish welding up everything on the bottom side. We'll do the grinding, we'll get it really cleaned up, we'll get it sprayed. Then the cab will be ready to permanently mount to the frame when we are ready to do that. We're gonna go ahead and get the other side welded in now. All right, guys, here's where we're at. I have the cab sitting down on the frame on top of the mounts. It's squared side to side, front to back. The body mounts are almost completely welded in. I have a little bit more work to do on the back side, but it's close enough now. They're not moving, they're not going anywhere. So I can now mark the holes that we need to drill in the frame side mounts. So everything's squared up. It all looks good. I'm really happy with this. It's actually starting to come together here. This has been a ton of work, guys. Just stuff, taking stuff on, taking stuff off, taking 1,000 measurements just to make sure everything's right. But hopefully in the end, it's all gonna pay off. I'm still a little concerned about the height of the cab or the level, how level the cab's gonna sit. But again, we'll probably just end up having to shim the cab. The next thing I need to do here, I'm gonna do that bolt trick again where I'm gonna put some paint on the end of the bolt, drop it down through the hole, mark our mounts with that paint so I know where to drill. Then we've got to lift the cab up. When we lift the cab up, I'm gonna do the last bit of welding on the bottom side. We'll drill our holes, drop the cab back down. All right, I got a good amount of paint on the end of this bolt. Oop, this one's gonna be a little bit more tricky because I've got to get it inside this mount. I'm gonna make a couple marks. It might not be perfect down there, but then I can see I got some white paint down there somewhere, and we're gonna do the other side. We're gonna do the exact same thing. Guys, this truck is whipping me today. I had to pull both of the doors off. So look at this mess. Look at this friggin' mess. This is what happens when you work in a small garage. You can see I've got my white paint marks on these. I need to drill those out. So that's the next step here. We're gonna drill those out. Come around to this side. The bushing caught some of that paint, but I can still see the original circle here, and it's almost darn near spot on where I center punch this. So I'm probably just gonna use my center punches for both of those because they're pretty darn close. I'm gonna end up cleaning up these that I cut last week and just putting a spot of paint on those just to keep them from rusting. All right, we're under the cab now, and this is all I have left here on either side to weld up. I've got the cab still on the cherry picker, and I also threw a set of sawhorses underneath the cab just for some added protection. I don't really feel like being crushed, so we've got the double protection here. Always good to have a safety backup. I'm gonna go ahead and start working this up into place to the floor here and getting this pushed up and welded in, and then we're going to clean some of this up and hit it with some paint. Once all that's done, we're really ready to drop the cab back on the frame. All right, quick update for you guys. I did a bunch of grinding, cleaning up. I didn't film it. I just got to work here because this project has become much more involved than I was anticipating for today, but that's okay. We're getting it knocked out. So I've got everything Scotch-Brited. I just wiped it down with paint thinner. We're gonna give this a minute to dry up, and then I'm gonna shoot this with primer and then with our semi-gloss black, and we'll fog it down real quick, and that's pretty much going to be it. We'll start reassembling the truck, see how it goes, and we'll go from there. So it's a bunch of work tonight, guys, but slowly but surely we're getting there. And I got a lot of the firewall cleaned up that I couldn't get to before, so we're going to get all that fogged in, painted in, looking much better. All right, hey, we're on our body mounts for the first time since we took this truck apart. That is a huge goal. Check that one off the list. Hard to see under there, but we got our body spacers in the bottom. We got them in the front. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and set this all the way down, and we're gonna get the truck off the jack stands, rehang the doghouse, and put the bed back on because we gotta clean up for the night. So that's gonna do it as far as the work goes for this episode, but stick around and you can watch me reassemble this truck. I'll probably throw the doors on real quick, and we'll see if we made any improvements on the cab and how it sits, how everything kind of lines up. So that's the plan for the rest of the night. We're just putting everything back together. Again, this won't be for the last time, but hopefully we won't have to do that again for a while. Alright guys, so I got everything reassembled here. Clip's got to be shoved a little bit further in. At this point it's not quite lined up very well, but I spent a little time trying to shim out the cab and the bed and just get it in a better position. I mean, it certainly looks better, right? I think it looks a little more even, but something's still very wrong. I can't place my finger on what exactly is off. But just so you know, there's about a 1-inch spacer under the cab right now, plus the body bushing, and I've got the bed jacked up, probably 3/4 of an inch or so. So it's really low right in the back cab area. Now, what I'll say is with this bushing set, the front clip and the cab line up really nicely, much better than they did before. So I solved, you know, whatever the ratio of height ratio is between the front and back bushings, that's correct. The truck seems to be super low in the middle. And I'm trying to think if that's something that I did when I shortened the chassis. There's no way that I could have dropped it 1 inch in the center. It wouldn't even be physically possible based on how I did the shortening of the frame. I butted up the rails. The area that I cut was straight and parallel, and I butted the rails up tight to one another, so it couldn't have been TP'd up or down, really. So I'm really confident that that wasn't the issue. What I'm not so confident on is we've done a lot of rebuilding with body mounts and the cross braces where the body sits and all these things, and most of that stuff was just flat gone when I did the repairs. So not having any reference points, not having anything to work off of, I'm wondering if we've got something off as far as the body mounts go. Now, the thing is, we can make this work. We can live with this. We can make it work, but it's off so far that it makes me think I'm just missing something. Now, I will also say that we've shortened the bed, we've bobbed the bed. Odds are I may need to actually, like, one of the things I may actually have to do is cut into some of the cross braces on the bed to drop it down just a hair, because it's not the original dimensions. I'm not sure if it's going to sit, if it's sitting on the frame the way it's supposed to be. My center 4 holes all line up and it sits nicely there. The back's a little goofy because it's resting on braces it really shouldn't be resting on in the back. So I almost know that's got the back kicked up just a little bit, but it's not much. The body line's almost level on the truck before I shimmed it up. Now it's basically level now across the bed. I theoretically could drop that. The challenge there is it doesn't fix our cab issue. So I could actually I could put a smaller bushing in the front, and that would bring the front down. I'd also then have to put a smaller bushing up in the core support to bring the front down, and then use a slightly taller bushing in the back. That's one option I have. I don't know, I need to think on it some more. I'm not quite sure. Honestly, what I probably need to do is get the thing up on jack stands with assembled like this, and just take a look. Get down there, start pulling some measurements, take a look, see what I'm missing. It's a little bit frustrating, but we're building a custom vehicle here, so you're gonna run into stuff like this. I just gotta take that kind of in stride as we go along here. And I wanna be sure, that if I did do something wrong, I wanna be sure to point that out, because if you guys are watching this video, if you're trying to build a truck the way I'm building a truck, I don't want you to make a mistake on your truck that's gonna cause problems down the line. So we will definitely investigate that situation further. It's very late. I've been out here for about 16 hours today. Honestly, it was so much work getting those body mounts set up, just pulling stuff on and off, on and off, on and off, fitting it, getting it lined up, getting everything set up. And then I had to pull the doors off to get the cab lifted up, and then put the doors back on because I'm sharing this garage. So it was a long day. But we got a lot done, and the truck looks even better than it did the last time we were out here. So I'm happy with that. I think we're headed in the right direction here. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know how you guys think this is turning out. I really appreciate the support, the subscriptions, the comments, the likes on the videos. If you're not subscribed to the channel and you enjoy these videos, please consider subscribing. Doesn't cost you anything. There's no obligation to watch. You can unsubscribe at any point, but if you're watching the videos, why not subscribe? They'll show up in your feed. You'll get them every time I drop a video, every Friday at 4 p.m. So all that said, guys, you know the deal. If you don't work on your projects, they will not work on themselves. Get out in the garage, get building, and I'll see you on the next episode of Cody Builds. Oh, that was dumb. All got on camera.